Okay, so now we're going to talk about your strumming hand, your right hand if you're right-handed. And so basically, most times most people will use, and sorry for the jumpy video, I use the big triangle picks. I mean, there's lots of other picks that you can use, but I use these. But, basically you're going to, hold it between your thumb and your index finger here. And sometimes people use it with the first two fingers in the thumb. And sometimes people, you can watch videos, people you hold it different ways. But basically, you're going to use the very tip part right here to strum back and forth and pull out here so you can see. So you're going to use your wrist to go back and forth. Unless you want some more volume, you can use your whole forearm. But every pick basically has a certain sound to it. And you have to find out what you like. They're pretty much cheap. You can try a bunch of different ones out. The thickness and the materials and the brands, and you'll eventually find one that's comfortable for you that you like. Like I said, I like these big ones because of the techniques that I use. But it's up to you. What eventually you'll find. Usually, thinner picks allow you when you're strumming to not get that clanky noise, and heavier picks help you dig in for rhythm parts, and for like metal and hard rock to get the pinch squeals and stuff like that, and down picking, like thrash metal, heavy metal like Metallica or anything like that. But um, also on your strumming hand, so, basically the same thing. One, two, three, four. But in the classical guitar, there's another symbols that they use that I'm not going to go over right now. But so you have one hand for fretting, one hand for strumming, and you'll have to learn at some point not to do what I call the ping pong, where you're looking this way at your fretting hand and back down to this hand back. And so you're basically doing the tennis court type thing, where you're going back and forth. So you'll eventually, I teach my students to focus on their fretting hand or the audience so that they're not kind of doing that number. And so my advice to you is focus more on your fretting hand and just kind of trust your strumming hand to do what it's supposed to do. And eventually, I train students to just look out in the crowd and learn how to play without constantly looking at their hands. Part of playing live music is being an entertainer, and part of it's enjoying the crowd and people reacting to what you're doing, interacting with the crowd. And so, if that's what you're doing, but if you're just playing as a hobby or whatever, it doesn't matter. But if you're trying to sight read and read tablature, you got to eventually get to the point where you don't have to stare at your hands, but you have to train yourself. Otherwise, it just becomes a habit if you're constantly looking at both, and it'll slow you down. So you got to learn to trust your hand, fretting hand, trust both hands at some point, and also through the different exercises I'm going to post, you'll learn the spacing, the size of the frets, because they go from bigger to smaller, and the spacing between the strings, and when you're picking, eventually get used to that. So anyhow, I hope this was useful.